a gentleman that's been helping us with co-hosting this show now for many years. I've lost count, so don't ask me. I'm getting old. I can't remember. But he's done a great job in that capacity and does a great job in writing and contributing for CrescentCitySports.com, among many entities. Esteemed journalist and longtime friend Les East joining us now. Les, good to have you. How are you, man?
Doing well, Ken. Thanks for having me.
Well, nice to see you last night. Strange circumstances, but, that's what 2020 is. Strange.
Yeah, it is, and fortunately, it's getting a little less strange. At least, we're having some games now, and hopefully, we're going to start adding some spectators into the mix here pretty soon. And I was at the first Saints game, and that was kind of weird. But as it went along, you sort of got used to it. And I don't know if that was your experience last night, but after being through two of these now, it's not quite as weird as it was when that first game against Tampa Bay began, but it's still not like being at a real Saints game with the Superdome packed and rocking.
Right. Everybody described the first game that I talked to as it felt like a scrimmage. Last night felt like a game, but just a lot different game, of course. And we'll talk about the Saints in a moment. Just to touch on prep, of course, being part of the show again and doing what we're doing. It's been a long, hard road to get here, and things being pulled together at the last minute, but that's kind of what's been dictated. And even now, the schedules are changing and some teams are pulling out. First of all, you have the Southwest Louisiana contingent of schools that were just crushed by Hurricane Laura, and you can understand that. And we've reported those schools at CrescentCitySports.com. But then you've also got 3 games, at least 2, maybe a third, that won't take place this week because of COVID-19 concerns. So, again, this is what this year is. It's just very unusual stuff.
Yeah, and it's going to be a week-to-week thing. There are going to be games like the ones you alluded to this week that aren't going to be played. And there will be others, I'm sure, as we go down the road. But, I think we should, give some credit to Eddie Bonin and the LHSAA for getting us to this point where we're able to have a reasonably close to normal schedule for the season under the circumstances. And I think you and your crew deserve a lot of credit for getting us to the point where we can have the original back on the first weekend of prep football. So I know it's been a struggle for a lot of people, but if you take a step back and think about it, it's kind of remarkable that we do have what we do have.
Yeah, I think we have to count our blessings and be appreciative of what we have here because, again, it looked for a while like we might not have anything. So it is good. And again, you're right. I commend Eddie Bonin. Look, we're completely and totally respectful and totally encompassing on this show. We don't play favorites. We don't let the politics of it all get involved. But this is the way it's supposed to be. You have an unattached executive director of the LHSA working hard on behalf of the schools and the kids, public and private, bringing them together first. Then you've got a governor who belongs to one party who's handled things, I think, quite well and put it in a position to be able to do this. And then when time came for the sports to happen, what he did was he got out of the way. And he let those parties, including the schools, the school boards, the medical and the LHSA govern and take control of the situation. Credit there. Credit to the Attorney General from another party who stepped forward and put forth some legislation to try to make things happen, and it certainly helped expedite the process. The point I'm making is, it's a big tent. There's room for everybody. People should come together and work together because ultimately now what you're looking at is public and private. They're all happy, urban and suburban, black and white. Doesn't make any difference. They're all wanted to play, and now they're going to get that chance because of the efforts of people on all sides.
Yeah, and just to go off on a slight tangent here briefly, maybe we can be hopeful that the coming together that brought us to this point might be inspiration to solving this split in the LHSAA, which is a separate issue, but one that's not been resolved to everyone's satisfaction here over the last few years. And maybe the experience of working together to get this season underway will inspire a lot of the people to come together a little more closely to resolve that issue once we get a handle on this football season.
I'm not holding my breath, but I sure agree with that, and it will be nice to have all 9 championships under one roof again this year at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. Although I thought the Tulane experience was a pretty good one last year, so overall it's good to see them all back together at least for a year. We'll see what happens down the road. So we look forward to high school football and the original 26th year kicking off this Friday night, 6 p.m. here on 106.1 FM and on 7 other stations around the state, and, of course, with our scoreboard at CrescentCitySports.com. And right about now, Jude is still cursing me and everybody else because of these screwed-up schedules and trying to put that together. Good luck, my friend. You'll need it. All right, so we turn our attention to what happened last night in the Superdome. Sean Payton spoke today, and he kind of gave a little bit more of an encouraging message based on the disappointment of last night. Said he thought they played very good in the first half, and I think that was accurate. They ran the ball extremely well. You had a great 2-minute drive. They took the lead going into the break, and I still think the game was there for the taking until that pivotal moment. First of all, you and I are sitting up there, and I know I'm not the smartest cog in the wheel by any stretch, but it didn't take much of my imagination or my eyesight to see that the Green Bay Packers were short of a first down by, as it turned out, a yard, and yet the officials gave them a first down. and then, of course, the replays were showed over and over again. We don't have the benefit of hearing the network telecast, but everybody was texting me and said, this is ridiculous. It's not even close, and the network guys are like ridiculing the officials. And, of course, the Saints got the stop. They get the ball. They're on the plus side of the field. They complete a 7-yard pass at 2nd and 3. They've scored on 4 straight possessions. What's wrong with this picture? I don't know. Let's change quarterbacks and try to run a read play. Look, I love Taysom Hill, and I'm a big fan of what he does, and obviously he's a guy that ignites this offense, but he's never good on those read plays, Les. He doesn't make the right read. If he gives the ball to Murray there, we're not having this conversation. It's a big gain, and we're having a different conversation. But he pulled it, kept it, fumbled, game changed. Packers score, Saints get it back, throw 3 very, very short passes and punt the ball, and Packers score again, forget about it. So, realistically, you can point to a million things, including the penalties, pre-snap penalties, the bad secondary penalties again, and such. But ultimately, to me, it was all about the fact that you had momentum, you scored 4 straight times, you got a quarterback playing well despite what people say, and you put the other guy in, you fumble the ball, and it changed the game.
Yeah, there were a few trends in the game that you can point to that were problematic. But if you're looking for a moment where it turned in the wrong direction, that would have to be it. And, you're right about the read option. That has not been a strength of Taysom Hill's. It's something he struggled with since he's been here, really, and they put that package in for him. And there's an inherent complication to trying to use Taysom Hill, and he's a unique talent. He's gotten better and better since he's been here, and Sean Payton, I think, has gotten better at figuring out how to utilize him. But there is always the potential for disruption of the rhythm of the offense. When you have Breeze and you're running the offense and you're rolling the way they were, that drive at the end of the first half was probably the best drive they've had this year. And they were doing well in the third quarter. And then all of a sudden you change and you put Hill in there and you do the read option, and it just changes the whole dynamic of the offense in a matter of 30 seconds, going from one play to that. And I think there's always a risk that can disrupt the rhythm of the offense. And, of course, you're right. If he gives the ball to Murray, it's probably not a problem. And if he secures the football, it's not disastrous. But there's an inherent risk in running the offense that way and just changing the dynamic so dramatically on the fly. And yet I think it's something you have to live with because there is so much upside to what Taysom Hill can do.
Yeah, I think it's all about the time and place. And I guess the best example of that would be the playoff game with the Vikings last year. The Saints they couldn't get the ball, first of all, but secondly, when they did, they weren't sharp offensively, so they went to Hill. They tried things, and he made big plays and gave them a chance. The difference is last night They were in rhythm. They were doing very well. They had scored on 4 straight possessions. So there wasn't any need to break that rhythm and try anything different. I think that, to me, is the biggest issue. Is I understand putting him in and trying different things if maybe you need a spark and things aren't working, but things were working quite well. You had a chance to win the game right there with a touchdown. Of course, it didn't happen.
Yeah, and you're right. The Minnesota game last year is probably the best example of the value that Taysom Hill can have, because if they don't utilize him to the degree that they did, they're not in that game. He was by far the biggest spark they had on offense. But the key is, like you said, is finding the right moments to do it, and it's difficult to do, with a play clock and all the decisions that are being made on the fly, when to put him in and risk disrupting the rhythm of the offense. But you're right, at that point it was so clear that things were going well with the offense, the way they were running it, the conventional offense, that was probably not a good time to tinker with something that was working so well.
Sean Payton today also basically not only defended Drew Brees, but spoke up for him and saying that there were no plays to be made down the field. Packers played the cover 2 shell throughout, and there weren't any plays to be made there. He said there were maybe 2 plays against the Raiders that would have been there, but the reason they didn't get the ball downfield was protection. He made that very clear today. So he really defended his quarterback, and I say that to say this. I'm bemused and puzzled by all of the ridicule and the criticism of Brees. Is he the same guy he was 5 years ago? No. Is he as good as he was 2 years ago? No. Is he by far the best option you have? Of course. Is he still a solid to good NFL quarterback? Yes. And if you look at the game last night, I could only really remember one inaccurate throw. I turned to you, and when he missed a short pass, throwing the ball inaccurately. Yes, there were some low throws that were caught, but they were caught. And the bottom line is, he's 29 of 36, throws 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and yet people want to blame him for the loss. And I just, to me, it's a bit of a head scratcher. I mean, the bottom line is, with the way he's playing right now, you can absolutely win. And whether or not he can get it down the field, Sean Payton says he can, and he had a great week of practice doing it. We'll have to wait and see if that's accurate. But let's also not forget, he's without his best player in Michael Thomas. Just your thoughts on this narrative about Brees being done and he can't play anymore and he can't throw it and everything else.
Yeah, well, I agree with all of that. He's not the guy he was a few years ago. He can't get the ball as far downfield as effectively as he once did. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean he can't get the ball in the intermediate range effectively. And Drew said last week that the couple of shots they tried to take against the Raiders were in the wrong coverage for them to be able to make the play. And then I think, as Sean alluded to, the protection broke down when they weren't able to go to their primary receiver. And last night, protection was again an issue when they tried to go down the field. Now, just because they weren't able to go down the field doesn't mean he was capable of making a 50-yard throw on the money. They're still limited in what they can do down the field with him, but they're not restricted to the 10 or 20-yard passes. He can still hit throws farther than that down the field to loosen up the defense. They just haven't been able to do it yet this year. And he played poorly against the Raiders. He didn't play great against Tampa, but they didn't need him to do a lot against Tampa. He played extremely well last night, and there's no way you can pin that loss on him. If you were going to put together all the factors that went into that loss, I don't think he would even be on the list. There were so many other things you could point to. So you just have to accept the fact that he's 41 years old, so he's not what he was when he was 35. But he is still the best option they have by far, as you pointed out. And last night proved that he's still capable of playing very good football. They just have to play better defense around him. And then I think Sean Payton last night did a better job, not a perfect job, because we talked about the Taysom Hill play, but did a better job of calling plays than he did in the first 2 weeks, and that's something else that's factored into their inconsistency.
Yeah, I would agree with that until the critical part of the game when the Hill play. And then on that last series, last after they fell behind, but still only down one score, they go 3 and out, throw 2 very short passes for 5 yards, and then on third down, just throw a quick smoke screen for 0 yards to Kamara sideways. And I had a problem with that, as did many people. You know, again, the chains are only 5 yards away. I mean, you've got to at least take a shot at throwing for the chains. Earlier in the game, they did something similar by throwing that little quick 2-step hitch to Taysom Hill when they had a 3rd and 6 situation, and they came up, 2.5, 3 yards short. To me, I think it's a basic principle that, you know, you gotta throw the ball to the chains in those situations. They couldn't afford to go 3 and out and give the ball back there. So while I agree that for the most part they called a better game, I did not think they called very good plays in those critical situations in the fourth quarter.
No, you're right, and I don't know how much this might factor into it, but you know they didn't play 4 preseason games like everybody else in the NFL. I don't know how that affects a play caller's rhythm. You don't game plan in the preseason. You don't call a game the same way you do in the regular season, and yet I'm sure Sean Payton uses those preseason games to kind of get himself back into a rhythm as a play caller. And he went in cold against Tampa Bay, doing it for the first time this season. I don't know if that impacts how well you're able to call a game because you haven't done it with this particular team this season. You haven't had a chance to tune up with the preseason games. And he took the blame for the Tampa Bay game. He said that he was terrible in his play calls. And I think he's still getting back toward that rhythm. I think it's gradually gotten better. But last night certainly wasn't perfect. I think it was the best of the 3. And, you know, I assume pretty soon here he's going to be back in a rhythm there, and the offense will be as well. But that doesn't address the issues on the other side of the ball.
No, it doesn't. Les East with us from TrustedCitySports.com. And when you talk about the other side of the ball, I mean, the most obvious things would be the play of the secondary, because if they're not giving up a big play, then they're committing pass interference or some other penalty. And I know Sean Payton was quick to praise Malcolm Jenkins today, but Pro Football Focus has him graded out at 51.5 for 3 games. That's not very good. And, you know, the naked eye says a little bit otherwise. He's effective in the box, but maybe not in the deep. But it's not all about him. It's about everybody. Janoris Jenkins had a bad game, and Marshawn Lattimore got beat deep. For sure, P.J. Williams got toast. I don't know how he's playing quarters in that situation against a wide receiver, basically left alone as a safety when he's a corner, but that's another story for another day about scheming. And to me, the problems have been mostly about the secondary, although people will be quick to point out that Cam Jordan has not had a sack thus far this year. Do you think it's personnel? You think it's scheme? You think it's a little bit of both?
Well, it's probably a little bit of both. I'll agree with Sean Payton to the extent that I think Malcolm Jenkins played his best game of the 3 last night. But overall,
right, I'd agree with that.
3 weeks, he has not played as well as Von Bell played last year. The problems with the pass defense just jump out. There have been blown assignments. There have been guys getting beat. There have been a ridiculous number of pass interference calls, but usually because guys were beat or because they couldn't find the ball when they weren't beat that badly. And then the lack of a consistent pass rush, not all Cam Jordan's fault. The injuries on the defensive line, especially Marcus Davenport, are contributing to that. But not having a consistent pass rush is going to expose weaknesses in the secondary even more so. And we're seeing a lot of that. But this is a pretty talented secondary, or at least we thought it was. And they played pretty well last year with this scheme, with this coaching staff, and they're not doing it through 3 games. And, you know, I hate to just say a lack of execution because that's such a general thing. but they should be better than they have played these last three games. But the way they have played these last three games is not nearly good enough for them to repeat the success they've had the last three seasons.
Yeah, it really looks like a poor college defense or high school defense with the way they react to play fakes, which have been a major issue, or naked bootlegs, or then even better yet, the goal line situations where, I mean, the Packers just did what the Raiders did. They called the same plays basically, and they got the same results. Guys wide open, uncovered, on goal line situations, and then on the naked bootlegs, not only were guys wide open, but many times nobody even covered them. So to me, there's a major breakdown there, either schematically or just players that don't read things very well at all.
Yeah, and I don't really have a good explanation for it because there's not a lot that has changed from last season when they generally played pretty well. They've not changed the scheme. They've not changed the coordinator. They've not changed the personnel significantly, although you do have Jenkins in there for Von Bell. But the corners and the nickels are not playing or not covering as well as they did last year. And I just don't have a good explanation for why they seem to have regressed with so many things being similar to what they were last year when they played pretty well.
Yeah, you really do have to start wondering about some of these first-round investments that the Saints have made, Les. I mean, Andrew Pete's hurt again. It's not his fault. He got rolled up on, but it doesn't look good at all. And, and he had gotten beat pretty obviously on one play last night and got beat on another run play as well before he got hurt. Then, of course, Marcus Davenport, who you just alluded to, hadn't been on the field yet. And then Sheldon Rankins, who's barely made a blip on the radar screen this year in what will be a contract year for him. When you invest first-round picks up front, I like the idea of building inside out. I think that's how they got good by and large. But it's obvious that in all three of these cases, you have to at least have some cause for pause, right?
Yeah, and I would say that in Sheldon Rankin's case, he was coming into his own as a very good player when he suffered that Achilles injury, and then he had a subsequent injury last year that was probably related to that to some degree. And so I think he was paying dividends that justified the pick prior to the injuries hitting him. Davenport, I think, has shown potential in his first 2 years, but he has missed so much time. Rankins had a lot of skins on the wall before he got hurt. Davenport really hasn't had a chance to put up many skins. He's shown a little bit of potential, but if he's not going to be able to get on the field with any sort of regularity, that was a high price they paid for drafting him. And then Andrews Pete, has always been what he is, a hard worker, a decent player, a versatile player, but somebody who periodically has bad games and has some pretty good games, but is not producing at the level you would expect for the spot where he was picked and the number of years he's been playing for them as a starter.
So now you're facing the same issue as last year, your interior offensive line, which has been part of the problem with Breeze as well. Eric McCoy is a second-year player and figures to be better, but Cesar Ruiz is thrown in now, and he's got to start and play. And Sean Payton said he did okay. It was a mixed bag last night, but that's what you would expect. And now with Pete out, Nick Easton's got to step up and play again. And they just had released Will Clapp, prior to the game. Maybe he clears waivers, maybe they get him back. But, again, this has to be an area of concern. To me, it was an area of concern big time at the end of last year. And going into this year, it was still a bit of an area of concern. And now with Pete being down, it has to be a concern.
Well, yeah, and I think the two biggest areas of concern right now are the offensive line and the defensive line, which are not good things to be your areas of concern going forward. And a lot of it is injury-related, and maybe the defensive line is going to get healthier. But if Pete misses an extended period of time, you got a second-year player and a rookie who was not able to go through an off-season program or any mini camps or even a traditional training camp and no preseason games. So Cesar Ruiz is being thrown into the fire. He would have been even before the injury. And now Nick Easton is being called on already to play a lot more snaps than they would have envisioned going into the season. So, yeah, that interior of the line, especially the way it impacts Breeze in the pocket, and then its impact on their ability to be balanced on offense. They did do a pretty good job in the run game last night, which was encouraging. If they can keep that up, that will help. But that's going to be an area to keep a close eye on going forward, especially if Pete's going to miss a significant period of time.
Yeah, and then, of course, as I said during the game, and a couple of my buddies pointed out this morning, hey, if you're playing the Saints, you want to play tight end. Tight ends always have good games against the Saints, and that's true. But right about now, just about any receiver kind of likes playing against the Saints the way things are going. And I think the only thing that cures that is being more sound schematically, but most of all, getting a consistently good pass rush.
Yeah, that's been an inconsistent area, and certainly Cam Jordan has got to play better. He's probably seeing more double teams and getting more attention than he would if a healthy and effective Sheldon Rankins and a healthy and effective Marcus Davenport were out there. So he's going to, until somebody else makes them pay, teams are going to devote a lot of resources to containing Cam Jordan, and that's going to really make it difficult for that pass rush. I think Dennis Allen is going to have to look closely at trying to scheme his way around that, with maybe some more blitzes, maybe some unconventional blitzes, but they're going to have to rush the passer more consistently than they have, and I don't think right now they're going to be able to count on the defensive line providing that by itself.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how they respond. Detroit up next, and who knows what to expect. The Lions getting a big win at Arizona yesterday. And, of course, the one thing Detroit can do is throw the football. They have a quarterback that throws it well. So the Saints are going to have to tighten it up, and they're going to have to be more consistent all around, including on offense, where they've had their moments, but it hasn't been consistent enough. Certainly the way they ran the ball in the first half last night was extremely encouraging. Hopefully that can continue, and hopefully something opens up down the field. And last but not least, hopefully they get Michael Thomas back, although I would not rush him. And I know you probably feel the same way.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't rush him with a high ankle sprain, and it's possible he doesn't even come back till after the bye week. I'm sure he's going to be pushing them to let him back in well before that, and maybe he'll be ready. But boy, getting that extra week with that injury, I think, is something that's going to be tempting. But that's probably the silver lining here is they ran the ball well in the first half last night. Breeze was much better. The passing game looked better, and that's without Michael Thomas. So if they can continue to show strides on offense and then get Mike back here in a few weeks, the offense looks like he could have a lot of upside. But that right now I would be more concerned about the defense, and I'm not as optimistic about that being on an upward trajectory sometime soon.
Follow him on Twitter at Les_East. And, of course, go to CrescentCitySports.com to read his fine work. Les, thanks for the time tonight, and we'll see you on Friday, man.
Thanks, Ken. Looking forward to it.
All right, Les East. We'll take a brief time out here. It's 504-260-1061. Speaking of prep football, next up, the head coach of the Fisher Gators, Tevin Cajuns, will join us as we continue with more of All Access for a Monday night. Ken Trahan on 106.1 FM Nash Icon and on the web at NashFM1061.com.
Wendy's famous 4 for $4 is heating up with the new Spicy Crispy Chicken Sandwich. The Queen of Spice is delivering that spicy chicken you love with lettuce and mayo between 2 deliciously soft buns. And yes, in classic 4 for $4 fashion, you can get all that spicy goodness with spicy or crispy nuggets, fries, and a drink to cool off, all for just $4. Is it getting hot in here? Or did Wendy's just deliver the hottest deal in fast food? We got you.
Offer includes 4-piece nuggets, junior fry, and value drink. Price and participation may vary.
Hey, it's me, your cousin, from Boston. I'm on the radio doing ads for Sam Adams. Now I'll be known as the Sam Adams guy instead of the dude who fell in the quarry. Sam Adams Boston Lager is crisp and refreshing, which is why I bring a six-pack wherever I go, except the movies anymore. Sam Adams, from Boston with love. Here's the legal part. Watch how fast I can read. The Boston Beer Company, Boston, Mass. Drink responsibly. Now, is that 30 seconds? Are we even close?
I take pride in our home and was tired of the expense and aggravation of having to paint every few years. That's when I heard an ad for Mid-South Coating's lifetime warranty and gave them a call. They came out and walked around our home, taking notes of areas that needed special attention. Then we sat down and reviewed their plan, which included pressure washing, some minor wood repair, and the special primer they used before the final coat. We picked out the color we liked and set a start date. They did everything they said they were going to do and even took special care to protect my garden. That was years ago, and our home still looks like it's just been freshly painted. I've recommended Mid-South Coatings to so many of my friends, I feel like I'm president of their fan club. So if you're ready to paint your home for the last time, do what I did and call Mid-South Coatings.
Call Mid-South Coatings for a free estimate. 504-264-5650. 264-5650. That's 264-5650. Or visit midsouthcoatings.com.
Tonight, Fox has all the new drama you've been looking for. From wild action,
LAPD,
to shocking twists.
Run in hell.
First, Gabrielle Union and Jessica Alba partner up for LA's finest.
You know you could get yourself killed. Says the lady standing over a dead body.
Then, Kim Cattrall stars in the new series critics call soapy good fun, Filthy Rich.
Did you really think you'd have the upper hand in my town?
LA's finest and Filthy Rich. Fox tonight.
Liberty Mutual Insurance Company presents Doug.
Limu, I love how we're always looking out for each other. Kind of like how Liberty Mutual looks out for you by customizing your home insurance. So you only pay for what you need.
Limu, why didn't you tell me about the uncovered manhole? I was literally just telling you. Limu, I had no idea you could swim.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
School goes on.
And Staples has everything your student needs to learn from anywhere.
Notebooks to sanitizer, laptops to project boards.
And all at amazing prices. This week, 10 packs of Crayola fine tip markers and Staples exclusives, Crayola 12-pack markers and 12-pack colored pencils with sharpener are just 97 cents each.
Shop in-store, pick up curbside, or order online.
School on, save on at Staples.
Ends 10/10 while supplies last. Limit 30 in store. Limits vary online. Curbside available in most stores.
Hiring can be challenging, but ZipRecruiter makes it fast and easy. We talked to Monica Starks, who needed to hire for her company, GS Group.
As the owner of a construction company, finding the right people is a very difficult task. So I use ZipRecruiter.
ZipRecruiter finds the right people for your job and actively invites them to apply.
With ZipRecruiter, we've hired everyone from accountants to project managers to field scientists.
And now you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. At ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Now's the time. What's on your mind? Time to express your thoughts by calling Ken Trahan of CrescentCitySports.com and All Access on 1061 Nash Icon and at Nash1061.com. Call 260-1061.
And the high school football season gets underway this weekend. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, games starting. It's a pleasure to be able to talk about high school football and see it actually played. It's been a long road to get to this point in time. We're sure happy about it. And as mentioned, we start our 26th year of the original Prep Football Report Friday night on this station and many others around the state. And we look forward to 6 hours of unprecedented coverage each and every Friday night from 6 to midnight. Among those, we'll be talking about and covering the Fisher Gators, who get it going this year with a name that's very familiar in the lore of Fisher High School, a former star of the Gators, taking over the program and ready to restore the roar, so to speak, or the bite, as it were, for the Gators. It's a pleasure to welcome Coach Tevin Cajuns of Fisher High School to the show. Tevin, how are you?
I'm doing well, Coach. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Great to have you. So, all right, so you take the challenge of going home to the alma mater. I guess the alma mater is first and foremost, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You always come back home. Home's always there for you.
Talk about your own experience about when you played back at Fisher before going to UL Monroe.
Oh, it's, back in the day. I'm sorry, I got a call passing them outside.
That's okay.
Back in the day, it was great. I mean, small community. Everybody had it back. It was packed out, Friday Night Lights. Lafitte's one way in, one way out. So everybody used to come to the games. It seems like we kind of lost that, so we're trying to get that back.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you next is, what's it going to take to get people interested again? I mean, the obvious is winning, of course, and that's not been the case most recently. It's been hard for Fisher the last couple of years.
Right. Yeah, just at least give them a couple wins. Of course, the people want it's more than just wins or losses. But like we always say back in the day when I played, was as long as they came down there and knew it was kind of a fight. It wasn't just they coming down there for an easy victory. It was always they had to work for it at least.
And of course, you've been at a program most recently at Patrick Taylor, which is just is a very young athletic program. So that's a building effort too there. So there's some level of familiarity with what you're walking into at Fisher. Talk about the comparison.
Oh, just the age is it's about the same. We got a lot of young guys here at Fisher, and the same at Patrick Taylor. Pat Taylor's going to be eighth and freshman team this year, so we got a lot of young guys. We got to think about only 6, 17 years this year, but we're real young, and the future's bright. I think last year the team finished with 22. We got about 48 on our roster now.
Well, I was going to ask you that. That's a pretty good number to work with, so that's a good start to have that many. We're visiting with Tevin Cajuns of the Fisher Gators, and Coach, obviously it's been a very strange year. Just talk about how strange it's been and how difficult it's been just to get to this point to where these kids can finally have a chance to play.
Oh, man. On top of all the corona restrictions and the guidelines off the summer, you can only have about 25 kids per grouping, and then you can't mix the groups. And now we come in phase 3, and they allow us to have contact. But, then Mother Nature comes in for us, and we had 3 storms come in, so that set us back a week because we flood down here. And then we had another week off because it was flooding the road. So we're kind of like two weeks behind everybody else. So we're trying to play catch-up at the moment.
Of course, you get the season started this Friday at home against St. Martin's Episcopal. Just talk about the opportunity, first of all, and then secondly about the opponent.
We're happy about the opportunity. It's kind of rekindling an old rivalry. We used to play these guys in district and regular games, scrimmages, jamborees, but now we get actual week 1 open against them. I think that the coach Janduza used back at Newman back in the day with Payton Manning and Eli Manning. So I know they're gonna be ready, and it's gonna be a good test for the direction of the program.
Yep, I know Frank very well. He does an excellent job, and certainly is a guy that commands a lot of respect. And then, of course, with regard to your district, just talk a little bit about how you see the league this year. And I mean, there's some schools in there that without being critical, you at least in due time should be able to compete with.
Absolutely. I mean, back when I played, whenever of course they were just coming off the ground, but we got Thomas Jefferson on our schedule, Haynes, Ben Franklin. Ken Discovery, they're up and coming. They're looking pretty great. But it's all teams that should be competitive. It should be competitive games. It shouldn't be just a washout.
Yep, Tevin Cajuns with us from Fisher. And Kevin, talk a little bit about a few of the players that you feel are players that we all should be looking out for and paying attention to this year.
On offense, we'll be led by quarterback Matthew Capel. He'll be a senior this year, and we'll have running backs Delvin Williams Jr. and receiver Elijah Lewis. He's actually a sophomore. And on the defensive side, we'll have our D tackle Terrell Williams, middle linebacker Austin Phillips, and safety Trey Usay. Trey Usay actually has an offer for baseball to UNO. Finally, he's one of the athletes that hasn't been playing with us, and we're glad to have him out here with football.
Well, that's great to have a multi-sport athlete that's capable of doing a lot of things. And then, of course, you just talk about, for those that aren't familiar with Lafitte, the nature. It's a unique community. It's a closely bonded community. A lot of people from the city area haven't been that way unless they're water aficionados and outdoor aficionados. Just talk a little bit about, for people that don't really pay attention, what it's like to be in a community like Lafitte.
Oh, well, like I said before, we're one way in, one way out, small fish community. A lot of our kids, we battle with that. During the summer, they got to work. They go to work with dad and mom, and they got to go on the boat or pull the tugs or anything. And it's a battle we do, but at the same time, as a coach, you got to kind of understand, like, some kids have to work. They don't have that luxury of I could just take a day off, or like, because they got to help the family some need. But we're very close knit. Everybody knows everybody. The joke is everybody's related in Lafitte. We're really not all related, but if a strange car comes down the street, they'll post on Facebook, "Who's this car coming down?" Like, it's that close of a community.
That's pretty neat, to say the least. But I get it completely, because I think that's a very accurate depiction of what you're dealing with. But again, there's tremendous pride when something is accomplished and something good happens, and I know that the community is looking forward to something good happening there. Final thought or two. What do you plan on running? What do you run offensively? What do you do defensively, Coach?
Defensively, that's base 4-3. Offensively, we're trying to get into a gun triple option, kind of like with Georgia Southern and New Mexico State running back in the day. But other than that, we're just kind of getting to a ground and pound. Back to a ground and pound mentality like we used to do in the past. We had a lot of success in our program with.
Yep. Of course, it all starts on Friday night with St. Martin's coming to Lafitte to take on the Fisher Gators. And I know that you're looking forward to the challenge at your alma mater and really restoring a program that has had some success in the past, and you know a little bit about that. So, Tevin Cajuns, listen, I want to not only thank you for joining us, but wish you nothing but success this year, and certainly we'll be in touch, and make sure you send me that contact when you can, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. My
pleasure, Tevin. Thank you. It's Tevin Cajuns. You got it, of the Fisher Gators. If you'd like to join in the conversation, it's 260-1061. That's 260-1061. We'll take a brief time out. When we return, the Pelicans, do they have a new candidate for their head coaching position? A familiar name? We'll touch base on that when we return in just a moment. It's All Access. Ken Trahan, Rudy Dixon, our producer. Back in just a moment here on 106.1 FM Nash Icon and on the web at NashFM1061.com.
At Progressive, we're making things even easier. We'll help you bundle your home and car insurance together so you can save on both. Learn more at Progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. That's Progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE.
At Cumulus New Orleans, we're here to support our local community through the daily changes affecting businesses. We realize businesses are the backbone of the community.